From the city of brotherly love, this is Bite Biz with David Strausser.
Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Bite Biz Live. I'm your rock star wannabe host, David Strausser, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Odeta Pine. How you doing, Odeta?
I am great, David. Hi. I am so excited we finally get to do this together, and this is our second episode.
Survived the first one.
Yes, it's been a hell of a great week, and I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got, I'm excited too, because we got some awesome topics out there, some topics that are going to be affecting a lot of businesses out there in one way or another. For example, you'll be talking more about the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The most interesting one. And, a lot of people maybe are wondering, the ones that are watching it right now, or maybe later, you guys are wondering why, we're talking about taxes right now. We should already submit taxes, right? Well, my husband and I were always submitting taxes late because we're always running around doing a million things and handling a lot of ventures and a lot of people that we work with. So we're always late. And, I wanted to share my experience on the, Inflation Reduction Act because that was very interesting to me and I didn't know about it. And I think it's something that everyone in my industry can learn about. As a matter of fact. So.
Definitely. Especially being a small business owner out there, there's a ton to learn about that. I'll be covering with the CHIPS Act. We got a couple things in that we're going to be talking about, and then everybody's favorite topic, the drama that just keeps on giving and giving and giving, and that is the Elon Musk and Twitter saga. Right, we're going to get some major developments on that is going to give us. So that's going to be pretty awesome right there. So thank you again, everybody, for jumping on, watching this show. Like I just laid out, we have an awesome show that is coming out there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. One thing I just want to share my screen real quick because I was kind of amazed once I saw this. Once I saw this earlier, well, yesterday I saw it actually. A friend, one of our guests on our show from our very first episode, his name is James Shea. He's the CEO of Cybertegic, but he was our first guest when we kicked off the Bite Biz podcast. He just got from Germany a written letter from someone that saw him on our podcast. They checked him out on LinkedIn. They wanted to work with him. And James was nice enough to share this with me. I just think that's awesome because it shows the type of audience and people that we're reaching out to, that we're communicating with, because the whole point behind Bite Biz and now Bite Biz Live with Odeta Pine and myself is we're helping people get personal growth. We're helping people find professional growth. We're helping people get business growth. It's the 3Gs. That's what we should call it. The 3Gs, growth, growth, growth. That's what this show's about. So, hey, thank you again, everybody, for joining along and all the people that are going to watch us after the live stream. I think it's about time. Let's jump right on in to our first topic here. And Odeta, what do you have?
Yes, absolutely. So speaking about the 3Gs, right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen a little bit here. And let me know when you guys can actually see it. And what you should be able to see is one of my actually favorite websites and an article on accountingtoday.com. And the title of this article, it was actually posted on August 18th, was the Inflation Reduction Act potentially doubles the R&D tax credit. And we have someone that files our taxes, right? My husband and I'm in tech, we're a startup, we do lots of R&D, and we knew about the tax credit, but we didn't know about really the Inflation Reduction Act changes that were passed as of August 18th, right? And what that meant was that they are allowing the small business startups to potentially double the amount they can claim on the research for 2022 and the development from 250,000 to 500,000 per year against payroll taxes, right? And this was huge. And the accountant that we have, and then we were talking about, and we're like, hey, how does this affect us and all this? And he said, yes, it's great. They raised it up about double, but there is a lot of things that businesses got to do to get that and qualify for that, right? So before we dive a little bit into that, right, and I'm going to try to keep it high level here, just so that we don't get a lot into the weaves. But what is the R&D tax credits, right? So for all of you guys that don't know, based on, this is another website that I love. It's called the engineeredtaxservices.com. They're the best. They do a great job with, taxes. And as of May 24th, 2022, right, this is the article that I posted. And essentially, the R&D tax credit is a credit that the government gives to encourage the innovation and the technical design improvement by giving companies back on what the developments of new product processes and inventions. For example, this, since COVID, we've dealt with the whole supply chain and demand issue, right? And getting the end products to the end customers and the people. And, there's been a lot of companies out there, including ours actually, that have invested quite some time on R&D, right? So one thing here, according to the IRS, right, you get almost 250 to 500,000 with a new, inflation reduction on payroll offset. But, they're not only for successful projects, right? So what that means is that you don't really have to have a successful R&D, for example, product launch that, helps out, for example, within supply chain and demand or a new product or whatever. But, it can also not be successful, right? And it doesn't have to make the market pretty much, right? But with this comes, right, there's some, limitation and rules. And in order to, to pass this, you got to go through what they call the 4-part test for the R&D tax credit. So what does this mean, right? For me, for example, I have 3 offices. We have one in Argentina, one in Mexico, and then one in the US, in Texas specifically. So everything that we've done from a research perspective and product development, within supply chain or any other different areas, even though we have employees and we have contractors, again, this credit can also apply to the outside contractors, right? So talking about what is a 4-part test, there's 4 things. First of all is it has to be a new or improved business component, right, for a certain purpose, an allowed purpose or permitted purpose. This component needs to be a product, a technique, a process, an invention, and formula, or actually a software, right? The second part of this is it needs to be activities that are technical in nature. What does this mean? This means tech startups, computer science, engineering, pharma, physics, biology, chemistry. So, and we know with COVID, pharma is huge, and all of this, different medications that are, coming out, and biology and chemistry recipes or formulas, right? The part 3 is the elimination of uncertainty, right? Can they do it? How they do it? The ultimate or proper design of what they're actually trying to develop and get into the market, right? And then the process of experimenting. So the company really must evaluate different alternatives when they try to develop the new or improved business component, right? For example, the trial and error, the systemic trial and error, or what we call quality assurance, the modeling, the simulation, and how all of that, comes together. So, again, it's a great thing. I'm all about the Inflation Reduction Act. Is there a lot of requests and to-dos that the companies have to do? Absolutely. And what does this mean for the companies like ours within the tech space or pharma or biology? It means that there's a lot of homework to do, and obviously we'll need a lot of work to get all of this done. And also for companies like mine, for example, where we have contractors, or employees that even work directly for G7 that are outside, like in Mexico or outside of the US, you really can't get much of that credit, right? So companies nowadays are trying to get into what is our plan, right? And specifically on the expansion, because if you're trying to get outside of the US, then obviously the plan in order to take advantage of this act has to be pretty accurate and has to be maintained within the US base or outside, given there is certain rules and regulations that you obviously have to follow for that, right? So interesting. Lots of homework for companies, including ours. Lots of different plans, expansion plans, and then growth as we're speaking for territory and employees and all of that good stuff. But it's not impossible. I think it's a good thing, and everyone should know about this and kind of read a little bit of these articles that I showed today, and make sure they're doing their due diligence and they're top on their to-dos, because taxes, as we all know, sneak up very, very quick, right? Especially if you're
Right.
an entrepreneur. And Q4 is here. For me, the year end is done.
And that's where my question for you, as you were doing your research and learning about this, okay, when is the right time for a business to really start doing that? Because this comes from the Inflation Reduction Act that came out this year, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, that was on
Okay,
August actually. So it just really came out when they
so it
doubled
really
it.
just came out now. I mean, with how this works, and I'm not super familiar with it to the level that you are, but is that something then that businesses should plan, like using those 4 key steps that you mentioned? Like, should they plan going into 2023 so that way they can maximize their tax savings?
Yes, the plan starts now. We had to do it. We are doing it for 2023, and this is, for us, affecting our budgeting plan, right? And expansion plan,
Hmm.
the strategic goals for our company. Because again, like I said, a lot of companies out there, especially tech, where we have the software developers and the designers, UI, all of that, they're out of the States, most of them. So
Right.
yes, my recommendation would be to start doing it now. We are doing it
Right.
now.
Was any of it,
So
do you know, was any of it actually like retroactive as far as it applied for the full year of this year? Or is it only
yes,
going forward?
yes,
Okay.
yes, there is a few things, but again, most of the companies, most of the companies do have this, especially the ones that are heavily into the product development, right? We got all of
Hmm.
the timesheet and territories and the projects and the tasks underneath everything, but there's a lot that really don't.
Right.
But yeah, yes, it is for this year as
Yeah.
well.
I
And
mean,
and
just.
we're scrambled around because we were talking.
Mhm.
I was talking to our accountant, and he said, "Do you have this and this and this?" And I said, "Yes, I have most of it, but not all of it." So again,
Right.
and,
Right.
and and we all know as entrepreneurs, taxes is the most tedious task for any entrepreneur out there. It is
Yeah.
for me, anyways, and my husband. So,
Well, I
and
sell
my
accounting software,
recommendation.
but I usually just end up, putting in numbers that look good, which I've been strongly advised that I shouldn't do that. But
Yes, my recommendation is to hire someone that really knows what they're doing, specifically within the industry you're in, and they know all of these little buckets and acts and legislation that can potentially help you not only on the R&D side, but also in a lot of areas, right?
right, right. It's
So
interesting that you're bringing this up because just a couple weeks ago, maybe about 6, 7 weeks ago, on Shark Bite Biz, we had an accountant that one of his core specialties, I believe it was Randy Crabtree, if the name uh,
yes,
is right.
yes,
Randy Crabtree
yes.
was on my show, and that's one of the areas that he's one of those niche accounting firms to where it's like all they do are these types of R&D type credits. But besides that point, I wanted to step back a second. I mean, it's called the Inflation Reduction Act. It's kind of like the CHIPS Act that I'm going to get into, to where it's got the title of one thing, but there are so many different facets just jammed into these bills. There's like a million different things in it. And my question for you then would be, I mean, to me, the outset of it is, you've got to spend the money for the most part within the United States by doing the R&D here, which, typically if you're doing R&D, they're higher paying jobs, stuff like that. And then you're getting a tax credit for doing it here. I assume that's how it helps, quote unquote, fight inflation, because you're bringing the jobs here to do that type of work instead of doing it overseas. And from bringing it here, you're getting people in higher paying jobs, and that's how they're trying to hedge a bet against inflation. Is that kind of
That,
an accurate summary?
yes, that is an accurate summary. And again, what this means is that, I mean, you're absolutely right, right? We would charge less based on the market we're in, and, we'll charge higher here. And what that means from a data, like a P&L perspective, right? A profit and loss
Right.
perspective, a bottom line, you're going to end up spending more money here, right? So the question becomes, hey, is this, and this is why we see the almost double this year, right? Because of the inflation.
Right.
You nailed it in the head.
Mm-hmm.
But the question becomes for each company and each leader and entrepreneur, and specifically the CFOs, is this amount you're going to get, right, from the government worth the overall short-term and long-term cost that you're going to get if you were to hire someone else outside, right? And in our case we have offices, right, like legit
Mm-hmm.
offices in these, so it's slightly different there. But the question is, look at the numbers, look at the data.
Right.
Does this make sense for you, or it does not, right? Short term and long term, because again,
Yep.
this credit is going to show up and it's going to come back in 2024.
Right.
So
Right. I wonder
you
what
got to
the
weigh
potential.
your.
I was sorry. I was going to say, I wonder what the potential for abuse is, because it again, look back at the PPP loans, stuff like that they did during COVID, and now you're seeing like all these people are getting arrested for the PPP loan forgiveness type fraud and stuff like that. So I wonder if there's anything like that people. I guess if there's a will, there's a way to abuse it, and people will find the loopholes to try to
I was going to
milk it for as
say,
much as they can.
yeah, and I was going to say, this is definitely the R&D tax credit. The act is definitely way more detailed than the PPP loan. I
Right.
think there's
That
it's
was
just very
done really
different.
quick. Yeah.
Exactly, and we were during pandemic, and a lot of businesses crashed and burned very quick, and that that
Mhm.
helped out to give them that, right? And that was the first round, right?
Mhm.
But the second round, it's not it's people have to pay it back
Right.
because they added all of the different to-dos like this one. So I feel with this
Mhm.
one, I don't think there's going to be a case like the PPP loan. To be honest, there's slightly different areas, and because this one has definitely a lot of to-dos and requirements that you have
Mhm.
to prove, right? Because we're talking about developers' hours, right?
Mhm.
We're talking about, for example, I have to, the timesheet, I have to get this hours in. I have to look at the details, what we've worked. We have the projects, we have the project plan. So it is a lot. I think there's less loopholes here
Right.
to take advantage of it. But hey, I don't know. I'm not a tax expert, right? I just know
Right.
and apply this to my business, and that's all I can speak about.
That's great. That's great. You know
But
what we forgot to do? What I forgot to do during the intro? I forgot to
did
mention
you
about
really?
chat. Yeah, I forgot to mention about chat. So go ahead,
That's okay.
give the chats a shout out.
Yes, so super chats. Please, 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 please send me the questions, and we will answer those at the end, right, David?
Yep, we will go through all chats, all super chats, questions, anything you have. Throw it in the chat box as long as we can see it, and we can see most places this is streaming to. Not all, but most. As long as we see it, we will answer it. If not, if we don't see it, we'll answer it later on. We'll just give a text reply. But yeah, definitely support us out. So I
Super
think,
chats, guys. Super
yeah,
chats. Super chats.
super
And hit
chat,
us up.
super chat.
If you have any questions, hit us up. I'll be more than happy to tell you about all my experience with R&D tax credit.
Yeah, that is great. So let's jump here into our next topic. Okay. And I guess I got to hit the share button, right? It's like the third time I did that today. First off, I want to give a shout out just to burn some Twitter trolls. All the way back in February, I had a good friend of mine, Lisa Anderson, on Shark Bite Biz. It was episode 139. And I was saying, hey, why the heck are store shelves still empty? Okay, now if you actually would have listened to the episode, you would have known what we were talking about. But obviously, it's Twitter, people don't always watch things before they type. They type first and then they watch or delete. And with this, I just wanted to throw it up here because it's funny because watching the episode, we were talking about manufacturing specifically, how car manufacturers, for example, are taking touch screens out of cars and just having monitors in some cases or some lower end cars because they weren't able to get the chips to manufacture them. And, Xboxes like the NVIDIA RTX video cards, all those types of things. So you can scroll down here. I mean, you can see a lot of the haters ended up deleting some of their tweets, but we got a couple here that stood the test of time that I just wanted to give a special shout out to because that is something that we've been talking about on our show, on our vodcast on Shark Bite Biz for many, many, many months. And I even threw up that article there from yahoo.com, which again, it came out about January, February, that article. And that was from the AMD CEO, where they don't expect the chip shortage to end in 2022. Now, I think with as far as NVIDIA goes, for example, much better place, especially with how crypto mining has essentially crashed. But it's been that tough that it actually led to the Congress and the White House there passing the Chips and Science Act. Okay, where obviously full disclosure, this is from the whitehouse.gov. So obviously, we expect some political spin on this, but it does give you some core fundamentals what's on here. Because during COVID, again, if you look back at the history, what happened? When it came to the protective gear that was protecting all the nurses, the doctors, people like that on the front lines, when we were still trying to figure out what was going on, they couldn't buy it. Why? Well, China bought it, or they stopped the shipments of it coming over, or it was stuck in transit, or whatever it may be. There's a million different reasons out there. It just stopped. People weren't able to get that. And then it eventually, as the economies of the world slowed down to trickle, it hit things and it really showed the world. And, some places hit worse than others, the United States, Australia, for example, where we have an over reliance on China for a lot of our critical needs as far as processors, chips, silicon, lithium, stuff like that. It basically really put that on full display. If they're not manufacturing, or if one day they decide to cut us off, bing, bing, boom, like we're in trouble. So the CHIPS Act, again, it's one of those big bills like that I was just explaining as far as the Inflation Reduction Act goes, to where it's jam packed with a million different things in there. But I'm going to circle in on a few very specific areas, okay? And the one that I found most interesting, and maybe this is because, again, anybody that watches the show, we just had on the CEO of Finch, that's Finch. We had her on. Her name's Lizzie Horvitz. Amazing, amazing tech entrepreneur out there. And, we were talking about energy, the future of energy. Like, hey, how good is a battery if it's got to be charged, a car battery if it's got to be charged by a, coal factory. And yeah, I guess there's a little bit of hypocrisy, but it also does use that energy more efficiently too. I mean, there's a lot of different nuance to things. Nothing is ever as black and white as, these trolls over here on Twitter, as they would like to have you believe. It's much, much more nuance. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring manufacturing for semiconductors specifically back to the United States. So that way we don't have that over reliance on China to produce, things that are critical for our country to survive if there is supply chain disruption. And you can actually see it here and this is from PwC. Okay. They have it right here, supply chain disruption, big bold letters, because it did follow that. And I think it was a great thing that our country really learned about the over reliance that we had on China as far as that stuff being made. But the part that I found most interesting about the Chips Act, and this is something I don't think many people know, and I only found out about it after my interview because I never heard of a micro reactor before. Okay, micro, like think nuclear, micro reactor. I mean, that concept, I've never heard about that. And we were talking about that because, I mean, my personal take is I think energy wise, stuff like that, we should rely more on nuclear energy. But the counter to that is look at Chernobyl, look at 3 Mile Island, look at what happened in Japan with the nuclear disasters that have happened or had almost happened. So, with this, what that act actually does, and this leads to a really, really cool part eventually too, is it leads to the study development of these micro reactors. And you can even see Hyundai, is really being proactive on the procurement and prospecting of going out there and making these nuclear reactors. So instead of having these big, huge, giant reactors like we traditionally have, I mean, look, today's technology, million times better than it was 50, 60 years ago. Okay. So the philosophy is like, think most people nowadays that kind of know what mesh routing is. Think of your home network, your home Wi-Fi, like you might have I have Orbi at my house, and we have three different Wi-Fis that all kind of connect together, and they make a mesh network throughout the house that's seamless. Kind of a little bit of the same philosophy with making a couple smaller nuclear micro reactors in an area to provide energy so that you can still provide cheap, efficient energy, but you're doing it at a level that is much safer for the environment, because otherwise, I mean, a disaster hits, I mean, you're talking century, 2 centuries maybe before that place is truly safe. So by making the micro nuclear reactors, you're making it much safer conditions in case a disaster would eventually happen. Now, this is where I'm leading to this, and I think this is from the Idaho National Laboratory. Micro reactors, they're more than just what I was saying with the micro power plants. Look at this. Okay, this is like a micro reactor that's on a semi trailer. Okay, think of a place where maybe, I don't know, natural disaster, tornado, hurricane, fire, whatever it may be, earthquake even. Okay, they usually don't have power. I mean, look right now, we're heading through what is it, like Puerto Rico has been without power. If we've had this technology of being able to do micro reactors, you could deploy semi trucks down there that have a micro reactor in it, and that can actually, they say right here with the micro reactors that it's 20 to 300 megawatts worth of energy. And they're relatively safer again because of the size. So if something bad were to happen, okay, it's a much more defined area, a much more confined area, excuse me. And I really think that's pretty cool because I think between the microreactor, stuff like that, I'm a big proponent of the nuclear energy and, fusion energy, maybe hopefully one day even graphene energy. I think that's really the path that we've got to go because, again, whether you're talking about cars, whether you're talking about solar panels, I mean, solar can produce energy, but the problem really comes down to the lithium that's needed for the batteries to be able to store that energy. Okay. And having that type of capacity, it's very expensive. And then we're circling all the way back to what happened with the supply chain disruption as far as an over dependency on China to actually produce that level of that level of the lithium to be able to create all the different batteries out there. So there is hope, though. I mean, I'm not saying give up on solar or give up on lithium or anything like that. The problem is, for those that don't know, you've probably heard the word lithium, but do you actually know what lithium is? It's the lightest metal out there known on Earth that we're able to work with, and it's also got an incredible capacity to store electricity, which it means that, that's why it ends up being inside of batteries that are in cars or batteries that are in laptops or other electronics, because of how light it is and the ability to store electricity efficiently. The problem is, again, if you're talking solar energy or wind energy or anything like that, you need a crap ton of batteries in order to store that energy, because a windmill, a wind cycle, wind turbine, they're not going to be turning 24/7. There are times, believe it or not, the wind does not blow. And that's where, finding another solution really, really helps. But going back to the lithium market in question, this is really interesting. There was a mine, and it's supposedly a huge, huge, huge mine. Okay. And it's up there in Quebec. It was owned by a Chinese company. An American company out of North Carolina just ended up acquiring the mine. I think it wasn't too long ago. Let's see. This article was reported, September 20th, 2022. So this article came out in New York Times 2 days ago. I mean, it's a relatively recent development as far as this go. And with this lithium mine up there, it does have the potential to really change the lithium market and help take China's hold off of that for our supply chain. Because again, lithium, the other problem with lithium is that it's oftentimes mixed with other metals, and it's very, very hard to separate the lithium from the other metals or the other stuff that it's combined with. So this plant is going to, this mine has the potential to bring down lithium prices, which, I mean, look at the price of a car like a Tesla. I mean, you're talking what, 60, 80, $90,000 or more, and most cars like that are electric cars are going to be at that price level or even higher. And a good portion of that cost is because of the lithium, the limited supply, how hard it is to manufacture, how hard it is to create. And that's where, this Quebec mine gives us hope that it can help stabilize and bring down the lithium prices altogether. And in fact, this rolls really nicely into what our third topic will be, that Odeta will be talking about in a minute. But Elon Musk talking about it again, CEO, founder, Tesla. Basically being a lithium supplier, owning a lithium mine. And here you can see you got some lithium up here to give people an idea of how it's found in the rocks and how it's so hard just to separate. But being a lithium supplier, having a lithium mine right now, it is essentially a license to print money. And that's coming from Elon himself, because that's how bad the supply chain has been disrupted with that. So I know that's like a ton of information there that I just gave you out. And I'm wondering, Odeta, what do you think as far as this chip act, the energy, and then even going for a circle talking about the lithium again?
Yeah, I mean, David, this is really, really a fun topic, right? I think everyone has talked about lithium and the microreactors and all that for a while, right? My question to you is, or I guess my question to myself as well is, Elon said, yes, it's a moneymaker, right? But think about how hard it is to
Hmm.
find a place where you can, dig and produce good amounts of lithium, right?
That's actually an
So
extremely important part that's in this New York Times article, because of the fact that most lithium plants, they said, again, this is according to the one New York Times article that I read fully on the Vine, is that it is usually in a very, very remote place, very
Right.
hard to get to, and it's not easily accessible. So
Exactly. And
uh,
how do we know, like,
gold mines are easier.
right, right. And how do we, like, thinking about the US land, right?
Hmm.
How, where, how, like, what can we expect there? Have, I think there's going to be a lot of scanning of the land, and
Hmm.
trying to see where it is and how easy to get to, right? And also, I think the other second part of it too, are we legally prepared for this, right? This is a
Right.
huge liability. I mean, it's cool, it's a great idea, right? Having those microreactors in those
Hmm.
trucks, and helping people in the US, and helping people also outside, like you said, Puerto Rico or Mexico actually just had an earthquake there. One of our
Right.
employees, he was here, actually his partner was there, but helping, right? That's a huge liability, right? Because we know if something goes wrong, I mean, there's no coming back, right? And there's a
Right.
lot of after damage. And think about the transportation of this micro reactors, right? So I think it's a really cool idea. I think, like you said, there's a lot of companies that are doing this concept, so this micro reactors. But most importantly, first, I think we need to find out if this is actually possible in to find the lithium, and where, and
Right.
in
Right.
what quantities. And then second, the legal part. How do you make the liability part, right? How do you make this safe for the US, for the people who are actually handling this type of micro
With the
reactors?
microreactors. Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it this way too. I mean, you got to remember that this isn't an exact apples to apples comparison, but I think it's pretty close. The military, for example, they have a pretty good track record of moving nuclear missiles. I don't know of
Yes.
any that have not gone off, purposefully, like what happened during World War II, or when they were testing things. I think that they have a pretty good track record as far as having those things safe, secure. Our technology has grown so much since those first nuclear reactors were set out, or something like 3 Mile Island. I'm not as, I don't know, maybe it's just me, with heads in the cloud hoping for a nuclear powered day, but I don't think it's that much of a risk. I think the technology has, like, caught up, if you get what I'm saying. And
Well,
when I
yes,
say caught up,
yes.
like, it's completed now. Like, they're far enough that it reduces risk. Go ahead.
Well, yes, yes, and I also think big part of it is kind of the AI and the tech part of all this safety, right, and
Mhm.
liability parts and pieces. I'm sure there's a lot there that we don't know or we're not aware of, that is actually happening or has happened to get these things where they're safe to be transported, and they're okay. They can help,
Now,
and
my
it's
understanding
possible. So
too, like, from the Idaho National Laboratory article, if you remember the image there with the truck, I
yes.
mean, these are relatively small, and the actual amount of nuclear material in them, from what I understand, again, I'm not the foremost
We don't know
expert
all
on
the
this,
details.
but
Yes.
from what I understand, I mean, you're talking about a very, very small amount. Now, could there be a bad actor that takes advantage of something like that? Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, really, I think probably fusion or graphene is probably ultimately where we're headed. But in the meantime, I mean, you have this energy crisis, and we do have a technology out there. The bad thing about nuclear is that, yes, it's the most efficient. I would say it's probably the most safest, just because of the fact, again, what have we had, like, two accidents and a semi accident almost at 3 Mile Island. But the track record of that is pretty good if you consider how many nuclear plants there are out there. So if you're able to minimize the risk more, I don't know. I'm a proponent for it, but maybe fusion or graphene ends up taking the day one day.
Well, we shall find out, right?
What do you think of graphene energy? Do you know much about that,
I don't know
or the
much,
tests are
David.
doing? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know much in the details about it, right? It's just kind of know the high level, but share something that you have with us, right?
Oh,
That you know more
uh,
about. If you want to get
yeah.
into the weaves of that,
No,
right?
no, no, no.
I know we're
Not
trying to
right
keep it,
now. Not
high.
right now. Yep,
I know we're trying to keep it
yep.
a little bit high level because I know we have Stuart as
We'll
well,
spend one
and
whole live cast for
yeah,
graphene,
yeah, I know,
graphene and
right?
the potentials one day. Hey, just a reminder, real quick, before I toss it back over to Odeta for our last topic before our amazing interview with Stuart, is please don't forget to send out a super chat, a regular chat, anything you can. We will answer any questions. You'll get all of our opinions, and we're looking forward to chatting with you all in a little bit. So. Adita, let's hit up our the fun topic of the day. I mean, I don't know. I thought nuclear energy and stuff like that was pretty cool, but I'll let you one up me. Go ahead.
Oh, and we're talking about Elon Musk, right? So last episode, we talked a little bit about what's happening there with that, right? And where did it stand at that point? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here real quick. So where do we stand right now, right? What's the latest? So you guys should be seeing theguardian.com. There's an article as of September 18th on Elon Musk, and specifically the whistleblower that claims may not free Elon Musk from his Twitter hook, right? So we're talking about the whistleblower Peter Zatko. And long story short, he was literally telling the U.S. lawmakers of the egregious security failings of the company, right? And this was last Tuesday of September 16, I believe. And the shareholders and social media platform, overwhelmingly voted to hand those problems over to, someone else, Elon Musk. So as it stands, Elon Musk, he owns more than 9% of Twitter, right? And then he agreed to buy the company in April, and he was among the 99% of voting of the shareholders who backed out of that, 44 billion deal, right? So it is unlikely that Elon, can now determine to abandon it, right? I think that he, with the whole whistleblowing, I think that and the court date of on October 17th, I think he might have to just go with it, right? The Delaware judge. So the trial is happening on October 17th in Delaware, and I guess we'll find out there where if he's going to walk away or not, right? And he actually might be forced on this notes and all the articles that have recently been going on to acquire the business based on the original agreement that he agreed upon, right? So, this was very interesting to me, the whistleblowing, and then the whistleblower, and then the the here we go. Sorry, the Jack Dorsey, right? So Twitter found Jack Dorsey to be deposed in Twitter, right? So you're looking at a CNN article of September 19th, of 2 days ago, actually talking about, Jack Dorsey. He was, co-founder and former CEO of Twitter. And he stepped down as of last November, actually, right? Yeah, last November, and remained on the board. He was on the board until late May, right? And he was previously subpoenaed by Musk's team for a lot of information, right, including sharing all these documents and communications for the merger agreement, as well as all of the different ones, including the spam accounts, which was one of the main reasons that he kind of backed out of that deal, right? So prior, to Musk's ending this deal, Dorsey, had spoken positively about Musk, right, and the takeover of Twitter. He was happy that he would, he would be the single solution that he trusted, and the reason why is because he trusted him on the mission to extend the light of consciousness, right, which is something we talked about, David, on our last episode as well, right? So, with everything with Jack Dorsey and the awaiting trial and the whistleblower, I think that Musk will definitely have to go into this deal based on the original agreements, even though he wants to back out so bad, and he's tried to, file a lot of claims. I think one was as of, I think, yesterday or the day before, and against to abandon the deal. But I don't think we'll find out on October 17th from Delaware, lawyers as to how this is going to end up, right? So I'm not sure, David. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
Well,
There's a
being that
lot going on, and I don't know if you've seen all the tweets and all that, but the whistleblower and Jack Dorsey and all this, it's just I think quite a lot.
I think the whistleblower, it comes down to if the whistleblower, if it's true, okay, and it does seem, again, we're all on the outside looking in, but it does appear like what the whistleblower is saying is potentially true, because he also did negotiate, I guess, a sealed NDA type settlement to leave Twitter after he did his complaints and the research and all that stuff. And even me, I mean, I was scrolling through and just looking at half these accounts out there, which are pretty much just bot accounts or accounts that just like retweet things and
Well,
stuff like that.
well, it
I
was
mean,
funny. One of your comments on your, on the Chips Act and all that, the lady, her name was Linda or something. It's like, are you a bot there? What is happening
yeah.
here? There's quite a few of those, right? So,
Yeah.
hey, I think
Hey,
they
I
exist.
I think it comes down to if the whistleblower's claims are true. I would be very, very surprised if Elon is going to be forced to purchase the company. I really think that it may come down to Jack Dorsey either validating,
Right, right. That's what
that
it
the
comes down to, right?
whistleblower
Is
is
true or
legit
not?
or not. Now, if is that enough though to back out of this deal? I mean, I hear FUD on both sides. Some people saying yes, it's enough. Other people saying no, it's not enough. He's stuck buying it because there's also apparently the leaked text messages, and I don't know. Again,
Right.
this is
I was
unverified as
gonna
of
say,
right
right,
now.
right.
Whether it's he doesn't want to buy it because of World War III just broke out with Ukraine attacking or Russia attacking Ukraine, and that's where I don't know 100%, if he's going to be forced to buy. I think it's going to end up in a settlement. I want Elon to buy Twitter. I think it'd be a
Well,
much more fun place.
yeah, but you also have to think about all the shareholders, right? I
Right.
mean, yeah, this is just
You
not.
said it was
And
what,
Elon Musk,
99,
yeah,
99.9%
99.9%.
yes.
Yeah. So,
But that's
it's
outside of
not about Elon
Elon's.
Musk only. It's
Hmm.
it's a. I think it's a lot more than that. And and I don't know the details on the agreement. I haven't seen them. We haven't seen them. So I'm
Right.
sure there is a lot about the shareholders part, because there's a lot.
Yeah, and
So
just to clarify that, my understanding is that it's 99.9% outside of the what is Elon on, like 9%?
right. I don't know.
Okay, so it's 99.9% said yes outside of Elon because of the lawsuit, he wasn't able to actually vote yes or no. I believe he had to abstain.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's great. Hey, get your chats in. Mom, thanks for loving me. My mom left a comment on YouTube. Thank you. Love you
Love you,
too.
David, Mom. Thank you for supporting us. Bye. Hope I can see
Yeah,
you.
there
I
we
can meet
go.
you in person.
Get your chats in. We're going to answer anything that comes out. But I think it's time right now for our special guest. And I know Odeta has been waiting for him to come on. So who do we have today? You may have seen it in the promos, but we have Dr. Stuart A. Lichtman. Hope I'm saying that right. Y'all know I stink with last names. Dr. Stuart Lichtman is an executive, entrepreneur, researcher, consultant, trainer, and coach. As the president of Partners in Excellence, Inc., he guided and run about 100 companies and trained more than 70,000 people around the world. For the past 20 years, he's invested heavily in spreading and sharing his cybernetic transportation system, which helps individuals achieve their personal goals by connecting the power of their unconscious mind with their conscious efforts. He runs multiple online training sessions every year, including an annual trainer coach training session that has drawn more than 100 participants who each learn how to use cybernetic transposition to earn $2 million a year. So without further ado, Dr. Stuart Lichtman, welcome to Shark Bite Biz Live. So happy to have you here.
Hi, David. Good to meet you.
Oh, pleasure to meet you. You know, we have a tradition on the show, whether it's a live stream or whether it is the interview podcast that I do, is we ask everybody. I just read your bio right there, but I want to hear it in your own words because you have done so much for so many people. Who are you? What's your background? You know, how did you start doing what you're doing? Basically, in a nutshell, tell all the viewers out there watching on the live stream and that'll watch it afterwards who Dr. Stuart Lichtman is.
Well, I've been an entrepreneur all my life since I was a student at MIT. Out of there, I invented an early artificial intelligence system to map the unconscious minds of people. Somewhat later, after a near-death experience, I was given, so to speak, by spirit, the techniques of teaching people to consistently achieve seemingly impossible objectives to sharply increase the quality of their lives. During the past 10-year period, the participants in my coaching program have had a 100% statistically significant success rate in achieving their first seemingly impossible objective and continue that thereafter for the rest of their lives.
Okay. So one question I had when I was reading your bio is, you know, a lot of what you said about connecting, like, what was it, the unconscious mind with the conscious mind and your efforts, making everything go full circle. To me, that sounds a lot like the law of attraction in a way. Is it similar to that? Am I understanding it correctly or am I off?
Well, the law of attraction is kind of superficial. Look at it this way, David.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do is done unconsciously. There's now evidence of that through functional MRI studies and so on. For example, the idea you decide to get up. Actually, they now know that unconsciously, starting up to 10 seconds before, your unconscious gets your muscles set up. And then it puts the idea of getting up into your conscious mind. And you're just saying okay to that. Now, we do everything unconsciously with a lot of habit patterns, unconscious habit patterns. Think about reading, ordinary skill, right? But think about what it took for a kid to learn to read. They first had to learn to recognize.
I'm doing it with my kindergartner right now.
So now we look at a book and we know what it means because we have unconscious habit patterns to do that. And basically, it's pretty easy to achieve seemingly impossible things.
Right. Understood. You know, interestingly, we just had an episode that aired, I believe it was this week. Correct me if I'm wrong, Francisco, but Rob Ashton. And it was actually about the neuroscience of the brain. And he was talking about and how your brain relates to reading and writing and how it takes that information in. So I found that like really incredible what he was telling us. There were so many different things I learned. The guy wanted to write a book on it. He thought it would be a 6-month thing. 6 years later, still no book because it's just so fascinating. And every time he peels back another layer about how the mind works, he's finding something else. And he's like, oh, I got to study this now. And it's just a never ending journey of growth for him.
Yeah, the brain is really interesting. It's like 200 billion analog, digital combined computers connected by 7 trillion interconnections. That's amazing. Now, think of the brain as your computer, and think of you writing a book on your computer as the unconscious mind, the conscious mind.
Right.
The unconscious runs the brain as well as everything else in the body, but it is embodied in all the cells of your body, the brain and everywhere else. So indeed, the brain, which I've studied for a long time, is a fascinating subject. What I'm interested in is using it to produce
Yes, and
results.
yes. Hi, Stuart. Nice to virtually meet you. I am
Hi, Odeta.
so
Nice meeting
excited
you.
you're here, and I am so you're an MIT, graduate, and I'm fascinated by all of your bio, and specifically the cybernetic transposition coaching program. Um, I would love to know a little bit more about that. I know we're talking about the unconsciousness and consciousness, and I am a true big believer in that. I have done a lot of. Do you know Joe Dispenza?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know
Yeah,
him.
so he talks a lot. He has a lot of coaching seminars about the brain and the unconsciousness and the consciousness, and how do you do and how do you get there through those different meditation during the day or during at night, first thing you wake in the morning. And one of the things he says, like you nail it on the head, is the unconsciousness is runs everything, right? It's in every part and piece of our body and our brain, which again, our brain is that part of our bodies that it's fascinating, right? And we really still don't know a lot of what we can do with it, right? But anyways, talk to me a little bit about the cybernetic transposition. I want to know a little bit more about that.
Okay, let me give you a real short thing. What it takes to achieve seemingly impossible things. It's really a three-step process. Number one, you set up a target that is adequately accepted by your conscious and unconscious minds. So consciously, it logically makes sense. Unconsciously, it intuitively feels right. Then you have to prioritize that because the unconscious is doing a million things at once.
So,
Millions of
Stuart,
things.
sorry to interrupt you. Can you give me an example of this, of what you just sort of that first, step?
Oh, sure. About, I'm 83 now. About 50 some odd years ago, I got an idea for an artificial intelligence company, and I needed $2.5 million to get off the ground. So I did the process of setting a target in my unconscious and worked with that. And 5 hours later, I got that I should call the head of a company in Dallas, a public company. I did, and made my pitch. And 3 days later, I had the $2.5 million in the bank account. Now, the target has to be very specific and very simple and very unique. Let me give you an example. Finding my perfect partner wife. We've been married for 17 years, and I set up a 32-point objective, one of which had to be perfect in had to go practically perfect in every way. Mary Poppins.
That's a very high standard, huh?
Yep, and she is. Also, she had to be a successful entrepreneur. She is.
Love it.
And so forth. Now, in essence, my techniques take all of this stuff, boil it down to a very precise target in the unconscious. And that's what I'm talking about in the first point. Did that adequately cover it?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. One question I have: I'm a big dreamer, right? I dream big, and sometimes dreams can be
Bet you
very
got a bigger dream
specific.
than you do right now.
Yes, so sometimes yeah, sometimes the dreams can be very specific, and sometimes you don't know exactly, right, the details and all that. So my question to this, I guess, is if I have a big dream, right, and I know the end goal of this, but I'm really, and I know what it can do, but I don't have the details, all of that. Is that still, can that still be called the target on your unconsciousness? Or does it
No,
have to be very,
that's
very,
too vague.
okay,
You
got
need
it,
to get,
got it. Oh, I think we lost Stuart.
if you're
No, I think
to
he's there. We
make a
we
lot
just
of
can't.
money,
There he goes.
you've got
There
to
we go.
say, for example, how much money? At least $125,000. You got to do the time period on or before December 15th, 2022. And so the objective would be something like on or before December 22, 2022. With the full and effective support of my success team, I will have done whatever is necessary and appropriate to have generated at least $125,000. I'll do this in ways that are for the highest good
Got
of
it. So
me
you
and of all
got it. So you have to
concerned.
be very specific on the goal and see it and that vision. It doesn't matter on the details and how am I going to get there, right? So that's kind of the first step, getting
That
them.
is absolutely not a part of cybernetic transposition. You see, here's the thing.
This
As
is
soon as
great.
you
This is what I love.
start,
I'm learning.
as soon as you start putting in hows, you limit your unconscious creativity. What you can think of consciously may not at all be the way the $125,000 are going to come in.
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you don't want to deal at all with how.
Got it.
You want to get very specific about what you
What?
want.
Right.
Got it.
And actually asking for what you want is what most people find most difficult, because our cultural system and educational system make it wrong to really ask for what you want. You know, hard
Got it.
work produces results and so forth and so on. There are a lot of aphorisms that say easy is not good. I say easy is good because when things are easy, it means your conscious and unconscious mind are in alignment.
Our alignment. Got it. Got it. Makes
Let me
sense.
tell
Doesn't
you
when
something
it's
I
easy?
do. Let me tell
Oh,
you
sorry.
something I
Yeah.
frequently do. Um, it's very easy using my techniques. Takes about 10 seconds. Say I'm going someplace where there's never a parking space. I imagine a parking space where I want. I ask my success team, which is something we developed, to create the parking space. And close to 100% of the time when I arrive there, somebody's pulling out in exactly the parking space I've
Mm.
imagined. Now, setting up your unconscious to do that, of course, is what I'm teaching.
Got it.
Mhm.
So going
Right.
to the next step, this is great. Going to the second step, right? You said there's 3 steps to it. What is that second step, Stuart?
Good memory. The second step is putting a high priority on achieving your objective, because the unconscious is doing millions of things at once. And unless you create a high priority for your objective, your chance of achieving it are relatively small. So again, there are techniques and imaginary devices I create in the unconscious to do that. And the third step is really key. It is resolving the unconscious roadblocks that would otherwise torpedo you. And people have lots of them. These kind of roadblocks are like, I fall asleep when I'm studying. I'm confused. I'm tired when I come home from work. You know, like you come home from work tired and then somebody says, great movie out there. You want to go? I'm going. And suddenly you're filled with energy. You hop in the car and you go to the movie. It was an unconscious blocker, unconscious, self-defeating habit pattern that made you tired. And as soon
Right.
as you change the focus, You have a lot of energy. So there are a lot of these blockers around. And there are various ways I teach to resolve unconscious self-defeating habit patterns into unconscious success patterns.
So that's one thing that you just mentioned that we talk about a lot on the show as well too. Those unconscious blockers that you're saying. I mean, those are the things that sometimes, they're like, I like to kind of sum them up like they're fake fears. Like, hey, I can't do this because of that, or I can't do this because of this. Is that kind of what you're talking about there as well too? Getting
Yeah,
around those, getting over those.
absolutely.
Well, one of the
Um,
things, for example, I my husband says all the time, I get so distracted when I read, and I love reading. For me, it's the complete
Mm.
opposite.
mhm.
And I just don't know how people cannot read sometimes, right? And that's a question. Is that more of the unconsciousness behind thinking that
Sure.
I will get distracted, or is it actually because there's something really here, or the eye, or something,
Well,
physically and chemically that you can't really get focused, right?
the getting distracted is the blocker.
Hmm.
The trigger is the
Odeta's just
reader.
trying to get her husband medicated. That's it.
No, 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 no. I'm just trying to get him to read so bad because therefore, I have this whole imagination and fantasy when I read a book and I get so into it and I can create my own little, imaginary world of coming out of one chapter, or even one sentence sometimes. So I'm just trying
Well, if
to
you
have him
like
experience that.
if you like reading Odeta, you should read my youngest son's first published book called Such Good Work. He won a National Book Award for, they give
Wow.
away 5 National Book Awards to the first time authors under 35 years old. He's coming out
Wow.
with a new one called Calling Ukraine. His name is Johannes Lichtman.
Johannes.
Okay.
Great. He's
It's
an,
it's my notebook right here.
he's an
You go
incredible
notebook.
writer if you like reading.
I go remarkable. I love my remarkable notepad. But I've got to ask you also too, Stuart, because this is a live show and this is different than what we do doing Truck Bite Biz, where we typically just straight up interview people. We also go over some of the tech news, business news of the day. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. We talked about the Inflation Reduction Act. We talked about the CHIPS Act. We talked about
Yeah, I had a
Elon
comment I
and
wanted
Twitter.
to make
What do you
about
think?
it, if I
Go
could.
ahead.
One
Go
of the
for it. We
fields
can't
I've
wait.
studied at MIT was nuclear engineering. I broke the rules there. I got an advisor that let me take whatever course I wanted in any field of engineering. That was strictly
Wow,
against the rule. That's one of my impossible achievements. So,
that's awesome.
are you aware that one of the 3 nuclear events was proven to have been totally human error, and the second one was probably human error?
Was 3 Mile Island the one that was human error, or was that Chernobyl?
That was one
Or
of
am I
them,
wrong?
and Chernobyl was
The
the other, I
Chernobyl
think.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been working in artificial intelligence since I was at MIT. I was one of the early pioneers. I did a venture in artificial intelligence back around '69.
So you
And
were doing AI before school.
yeah, absolutely. I was
Well,
there when the argument at MIT was, do you spell computer the way we do now, or do you spell it Computor? Because you remember in the World War II movies, they show in London the
computers.
women sitting in front of a big board where they're marking
With
down.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Those are called computers with an O. So that was a big discussion at MIT when I was there, and whether computers should be analog or digital.
Digital.
Of course, the brain
Right.
cells do both, the neurons. Um, so I am hopeful that we can get away from the negative side of AI and use AI on nuclear plants to prevent the kind of human errors. I mean, human errors like
Hmm.
the water supply for the cooling dropped
Hmm.
and nobody noticed it.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what caused the blow up.
Right. And
That's
David,
incredible.
right, right. And this, Stuart, and David, this is what I was talking about, right? When it comes down to the technology and the AI, specifically for the trucks. And if you're,
Mhm.
because think about the infrastructure, right, Stuart and David? Think about the places that the trucks will go containing these nuclear microreactors. There have to be sensors. It's just like, I think I can envision it as being a sensor truck that can measure exactly, Stuart, what you just said, right? Those, levels of whatever it is of variables that will throw that equation off and cause a fatality.
Yeah,
And
I mean, you
I
don't
truly
have,
do believe in the AI. Go ahead, Stuart.
you really don't need have to have any invention, so to speak, to know what factors should be monitored.
Right,
That
Mhm.
was
right,
known 50 years ago.
exactly,
Right.
exactly,
We just need to get humans out the loop.
right,
And
Right.
when I was at MIT, taking all areas of engineering, I realized there was always one piece of the puzzle that screwed things up, and
yes.
that was a human. So I went to my thesis advisor, Dwight, and I said, how do I model humans? And
Mhm.
he said, well, look at psychology and economics. Neither of those did. So I invented a way of modeling humans, which was my artificial intelligence venture. The US government paid me to do it, the British government, Fortune 500s, and so on, to use it for market research, for organizational research, and so forth. Um, when we studied the SBA, it developed models that could predict the success of an entrepreneur in 5 years with 92 to 99% accuracy. That's about 10 times as good as a venture capitalist.
Right, right.
That's amazing. So,
Wow, wow.
to circle back on that topic, then, do you think because we do have problems with energy, not just here but around the world.
Everywhere.
Where do you view? Again, you've had scientific background, you understand some of the nuclear stuff, you knew the human error, AI is potentially part of the key of unlocking safe nuclear power. Do you think nuclear or those micro reactors, as we were talking about, do you think that's a future that
I think
we're
that's
actually going to see?
entirely, I think that's entirely viable. Um, we now have the technology to take the human out of the loop, so to speak, in
Hmm.
terms of monitoring. And that was the big failure in previous nuclear plants. Now we have to go, I don't know whether you saw, I think it was last Sunday, 60 Minutes had a segment on people trying to bring down the electric grid. Now that's the
Hmm.
big risk.
Right,
If
right.
they were,
Right.
they said it would take, if they were trying to shoot the cooling system of the transformers, which
Right.
is a technology we use militarily
Hmm.
to on our enemies. If they hit the right five of the 3,500 stations, they'd bring down the whole grid. Now that's what scares me in terms of energy.
Wow,
Um,
wow.
Right. No, that definitely does. I mean, you look, COVID became a little bit of a blur for me. Was it last year when the ransomware hack happened with like that oil company or whatever it was, I believe?
it was
Yes,
Um,
actually a gas company, and
yeah, there you
it
go.
was very interesting that in Technology Review, the MIT magazine,
yes.
they had a discussion with the people in Congress who were most responsible for the issues around hacking. And they gave a hypothetical situation, which was exactly what happened several months later with the gas company. I have a
Isn't that?
hypothetical situation that if the grid goes down for
Hmm.
500,000 miles around you, you'll be
We're,
without food, you'll be without lights, you'll
Hmm.
be without power, you'll be without water,
yep.
you'll be without medical I mean, that is a catastrophic potential. These little nuclear plants are um, a way of probably protecting ourselves.
And
Yeah. Like you saw the image, for example, for people that have joined us late. I was shown from the Idaho National Laboratory, where they had an image of, think of a semi trailer, but in the trailer itself, it had a mini nuclear reactor that could power what was it, like a 20 to 300 megahertz or watts or whatever it's called, and they could be deployed readily fast. But I think it's interesting that there's such a negative stigma about nuclear energy going
yeah.
around, and I think using technology, it's the key to growth. So I think circling back on that, finding a way to make it safer. And I think what both Odeta and Dr. Stewart have said about using AI to help monitor, take the human error out of it, I think that's a big, huge step forward. But also, technology is bad because tech's also what led to like the gas shortage. So it's both good. It can help us, but in the hands of the wrong people, tech like that can also hurt us.
Well, I was gonna say tech is as bad as people make it, right?
Yep.
Or people don't. So, I'm a true believer that technology is a great thing. And to Stuart's, point, most of these catastrophes that we've seen, specifically in the nuclear, area, is there's human errors, right? So if we have the technology in the right hands of the right people to do the right thing and eliminate that, then technology is not bad. I love technology.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
well,
It's not.
you talk about big dreams. Want to hear my present big dream?
Oh yeah. Let's go
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
Saving the world. Right now,
There you go.
um, we're heading toward Armageddon. Really,
Yes.
there
Yes.
are so many ways we can destroy civilization now. It is, I just, in my new book, I did my second new book called Leaping Past Armageddon to a Paradise on Earth. That's my objective. And my current new book that'll come out in November is the first step in that. Make your life a paradise on earth. Make your life a 10.
Ah, yeah.
And
Yeah. That,
Yes.
I have absolutely proven technology for that one.
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Definitely. So I think we have two final questions for you, and then we're going to jump into some super chats. We got some questions that came in. First one we have for you: Elon Musk and Twitter. Is Elon going to buy Twitter? Is he going to be forced to buy? What's your thought on that?
I think there's going to be a prolonged legal battle. And um, eventually somebody's going to get tired of it because it's so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Yeah. Not
as
ending
far
in October.
as far as Musk's worries about Twitter, I think the whistleblower kind of validated some of those.
Yes.
As far as Twitter's assertion that didn't Musk didn't really do his due diligence before making the order, I think that the offer, I think that's correct. So we now have boom, boom, boom going
Yep.
on.
Right here, and then right here, and then right here, and then
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah,
I wish he just bought it and got it over with. But also,
Well,
before we jump into super chats, where first off, I mean, I don't know how many books you have, but I know it's more than one. Tell us your book titles and where people can find your book at.
the one that's out there currently is How to Get Lots of Money Fast for Anything Fast.
that's the one
Yeah.
that it's on my list. As I was telling David for this.
Yeah, and it's only available on the web. You go to www.anything-fast.com.
Oh wow, I'm
www.
surprised that domain was even available. How long have you had that domain for?
Oh, I've had that name for 22 years.
Oh, there you go. That's why. That's why. That's why it was available, because you were probably the first one to buy it. But that's a good domain. That's pretty anything dash fast.com.
Fast.com.
That's awesome. I love it. What about
Yeah.
your other books, Doctor?
Well, the one coming, of course, will be available first on Amazon. My
Hmm.
target date for publication is November 15th, but there are a lot of people involved um, in that because we're also going to issue it to the bricks and mortar bookstores at the beginning of 2023. So, you know how deadlines are. They're sometimes a little flexible. I can set them for
Right.
mine and hit them very easily. When others get involved, if I made a mistake in my target, picking the wrong person, they get a little slower.
Yeah.
So probably around November 15th.
Okay.
Make your
Right.
life
Right.
a
Right.
10.
Now, am I wrong? Wasn't there another book that you had mentioned that he had wrote that you wanted to read, or am I
It
mixing things up?
was no,
Oh,
you're
my
right.
son's book, Johannes
Oh, it
Lichtman,
must have been your son's
Yes,
book then.
that's
Yeah.
the
Such
one.
Good Work,
Yes.
and coming
Yes.
out April 11th is
Okay. Think we lost him. He does not have the strongest of connections, but we will
Yeah.
let him catch back up with us.
This
In
has
the
been a great
meantime,
session, David.
yeah. In the meantime, I'll throw this chat up that we received. Oh, looks like Stuart's back.
We got him
Let's
back.
turn him back on.
We got you back,
Okay, we got you
Stuart.
back.
okay.
So Mr. Andrew Ebling threw out here Penn State has a small nuclear reactor used for a trade arch facility. So he's saying that, yes, small nuclear reactors are possible. I thought that was very cool. I did not know that Penn State has a small nuclear reactor.
I had no idea either.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Let's see. The Wenton, a very informative Stewart. What do you feel our biggest threat will be in the nearest future? Which is interesting because you just said that you felt that we were close to Armageddon. So what's the biggest threat in the near future?
Oh my gosh. One of them is Vladimir Putin, who
Mm-hmm.
believes his divine destiny is to make Russia great again. In fact,
Yeah.
he's got the collusion of the Russian Orthodox Church in that, and he is utterly ruthless. When I was doing my doctorate, I worked under a fellow called Ralph White, who's in charge of the United States Information Agency, which was then a part of the propaganda arm of the CIA. And I learned to role play the Russian leaders and so on. Putin scares the hell out of me. He
Wow.
is,
When
he
you
will
were doing
do
that,
any,
was he wasn't the leader of Russia though, was he? Was he the like in the
no, he wasn't a
KPG then?
threat. He became, oh my mind, my memory is failing a little bit too. Hold on a second.
Oh, no
He
problem.
became prime minister about, don't have the number.
Okay. Couple
For the
years we'll
previous
estimate
one,
it.
Yeltsin, that is when Yeltsin had to
Hmm.
withdraw because of his health. He died shortly thereafter. Um, and 2 days after he became president, I said prime minister, I meant president of Russia,
Hmm.
he made a proclamation, a speech that said, in essence, his divine destiny was to make Russia a great power again. And he had said recently he would do literally anything to make that happen. That's the one
Yep.
that scares me most. But I live in California. We haven't.
Hmm.
We have had in the past 6 months 6 hours of light rain. That's it. We've had the worst
Wow.
drought in since 1500. I mean, there are
Wow.
so many converging
That
things.
bad.
Um, so there are roughly 26,000 nuclear missiles stowed, some of them not very carefully protected. A terrorist
Yeah.
could get a hold of 1 pound of fissionable material and with an ordinary machine shop could make a nuclear bomb that would devastate most of a U.S. city. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many. The COVID is not a unique event. It's
No.
predicted there'll be a lot more of those.
Yep.
Now, from my point of view, if you want it, and the thesis in my future new book is that 12,600 years ago, um, there occurred what in the Bible is called the Noahic flood. You remember that?
Right. Yep.
At that time, according to geological records, the sea level rose by 200 feet. We are now in global warming. Do you know that if the glaciers, which are melting, fully melted, they would raise sea level by 250 feet?
Yeah,
253.
I've seen a lot of estimates
Yeah.
like that. And
Well,
in fact, I just read an article last
that's a
week
pretty
about a
easy
huge
one to
chunk.
estimate. Did you know that 2.7% of the water in the world is in the glaciers? And
Yeah.
Yep.
if you just add 2.7% to the sea level,
Hmm.
the average sea level is roughly 3,000 feet. They have it exactly, I don't remember. It would come out 253 feet. Can you imagine what would happen? I mean,
Yeah.
unless we do something, and that's what I'm trying to do with my impossible objective, unless we do
Right.
something so people start making decisions for life, for the world, for peace, for security, for abundance, we're in real trouble. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm going to live till I
Agreed.
be 24.
Agreed.
I hope it's going to be much better by the time I kick off.
Interestingly, I had a guest on from Australia, and this is just one of those coincidental not arguments, but discussions that we were having. And one of the things that she was talking about, because again, she's somebody that's kind of like you, that's talking about the power of the mind and stuff like that. But she was also bringing up the topics as far as everything being cyclical, that it goes in cycles. And we started talking then, like, well, do you mean like the fourth turning? And yeah, that's exactly what she was talking about. Have you ever read the book The Fourth Turning? Have you
No,
seen that at all?
no, but
No,
I'll write it
that
I
down.
haven't
Hold on a
either.
second.
yeah, that is a great book. So I'll give you the brief story of it. Is that there's two historians, like legit historian researchers. They happen to be speaking together. I think the one guy's name was Neil Strauss, I believe. Um, but basically, they were speaking at the same event, and one was researching one thing, the other one was researching something else, and they were talking to each other, and they found out, wow, our research actually connects, and it goes full circle. And what they found out was that most Anglo-Saxon cultures like US, UK, we follow 80-year cycles. Now, we're not all on the same 80-year cycle, but he did say, I believe they said that other cultures are all on cycles as well too, they found. And they trace it. Now, they're not all 80 years. They're different cultures, different areas of the world, different, they're at different stages of their cycles, and they're different lengths, and it's not always exactly 80 years. It within more or less 5 years. So they came together and they published this research in the very late 90s, and they're like, if this actually holds true, the fourth turning, the last part of this cycle before everything kind of goes up in flames, and then it starts again with the first part of the cycle is going to be somewhere, I think it's like the 2024, 2026 range in there, maybe as early as 2022. I forget exactly. It's been about a year since I've researched the whole book, but it's a very interesting topic. And, it's something that is based on actual history. You look 80 years ago, what was it, World War II? 80 years before that, there's another big war or something like that, Civil War, I think it was. And then you do 80 before that, and you keep doing that, and you see these cycles, and then 20, they're basically 4 20-year periods, and we're coming to the end of the fourth 20-year period. So I thought that was interesting as you brought that up.
That's interesting. We're also at the 25,000 year cycle.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm about to turn 84. Now, everybody.
Don't look a day over 83.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
People live their lives in 7-year cycles. If you divide your life into 7-year chunks, just after the turning of the cycle, you'll see there are significant changes just before, just after.
Yeah,
Wow.
For example, when I turned 77, 3 months later, I discovered I had stage 4 lung cancer, which, by the way, using my techniques, I cured to the absolute amazement of my oncologist. I had a tumor taking up 40% of my left lung, and a month later it was gone totally. That was 5 years ago.
That's amazing, and congratulations on beating the cancer. That's incredible. Yep. Just real quick, I wanted to mention I mixed up their names with the fourth turning. I combined their names. It's actually Neil Howe and William Strauss. That's who wrote the book. Those two historians, and it's a pretty crazy thing. It's actually called The Fourth Turning: An American Prophecy. And again, it's going through those cycles, and if their predictions right, we're pretty much entering that time zone that their fourth terming would happen. But anyways, I think we've pretty much ran through the chats. I see Andrew that threw in about Penn State with the micronuclear plant. He added it wasn't an arch facility. He was actually saying that it was a research facility. Yeah. So clarify that from his. Yeah. So the whole thing should read that Penn State has a small nuclear reactor used as a research facility. So that's what he was trying to say. But hey, Dr. Stuart, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You survived being shark bait.
Very grateful
to have you on.
It was so nice meeting you. What a pleasure. Have a great day.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Yep. Cheers. Odeta, here we go. Bite Biz live show has just ended. So what do you think? I think this went pretty good.
It was great. It was fun. Stuart was great. Lots of information. Hope
lots of great topics.
Yes, hope people loved it. And please follow, subscribe, and give us honest feedback. We'd love to
give
get
us
better
feedback.
and better. And if there's any topics that you guys would like to see on the next live episode, that would be great.
So we're going to be back doing this again the third Wednesday in October. I believe it's October 19th.
Yep. Hope to see you there, guys.
Hope to see you there, and we'll have whatever fresh topics there are, and you can probably continue your cycle of giving the update of what happened in the courtroom with Elon and Twitter.
Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
To you. Bye.
Over and out from Shark.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.